Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have something slightly different on the bench than we normally cover on this channel. It is the Retro Recall, so this definitely qualifies. So first off, I want to say thank you to Aaron so much for lending this to the Retro Recall to be able to do a video on. Normally Aaron is a collector of old game consoles, and this definitely qualifies as that. And I've been offered by Aaron several times to do kind of the old game console reviews. You name a console, he has it. This is one of those ones that I wasn't going to say yes to until I realized that this was also considered a computer by Sony. So it is definitely something that I wanted to cover on the channel just because I'm more of a computer person. And of course, Aaron's more of a game console person, and this is where we met in the middle. So today we're going to go over this beautiful looking system. I have no idea if it works. I have no idea if it turns on. I don't know anything about this. We're going to do all this together as we go through this video. So you know what? As always, we have lots to do. Let's get right to it. Okay, and welcome back. And we're on a slightly different camera angle here just to kind of get a different view of the system because it's so far back. So this particular device, the GamePuter, I'll call it, is a F1XV by Sony. It's a hit-bit MSX format 2+ system. So the model number of this is HB-F1XV. It's considered a personal computer. It says right here. And, you know, it's one of those units that, again, I've never seen, but this was manufactured for the Japan market. And this particular model was marketed by Sony, but also the last that was marketed by Sony. They're calling it the final MSX manufactured. And again, as I mentioned, it was aimed at the Japanese market. So it states in the documentation that I found online that the extra features that were added to this, the hardware features, for example, the pause button, the speed controller button, and the auto fire joysticks and spacebar were basically aimed at the game side of the personal computer aspect of this device. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to go over this and find out exactly what is all about. The manufacturing date of this unit, according to Sony, they started manufacturing this last line of this device back in 1989. Now this unit, we're going to find out exactly when the date codes are on the chips and things like that to find out when this was manufactured. So the first thing we're going to look at here is just the general overview of the top area of this unit. So you know, the keyboard itself, the actual tactile feel of the keyboard is it's almost as if you're typing on an electric typewriter or electronic typewriter. That's how this feels. It's definitely a decent keyboard, and you can see all the different function keys. I have no idea what half of these do. I mean, it's interesting, but we'll go over it. And it says, so we have our escape key. It does have the, you know, the QWERTY layout, which is nice even for going back in 1989. But we have our tab, control, and shift along the side here. We also have our cap, graph. We have another function button here. I have no idea what it is. We have select, shift, return, and BS, which everyone's laughing, I know, but backspace. And then we have a number pad over here, and then we have directional arrows here as well. We have a reset button that seems to be reset into the chassis itself. So it would take basically another item to push down inside of there to reset, which is actually a good feature in my opinion, because then that way you're not accidentally pressing it while you're working away on the computer. Then we have our pause button, stop button, del, insert, and home keys. The F1 through F10 function keys, but done through, no doubt, through the shift button here, or potentially another button on the keyboard to activate the second row of functions there. So along the top here, you can see that we have two kind of slide bars that are here as well. So we have, it says normal to slow, it says speed controller. I don't know if that slows down the CPU that's in this or not. I don't know what functionality that actually grants outside of what it says at face value. And then over here we have Renshaw Turbo. So off all the way to max. Now, when I got this system, both were turned up to the top. I don't know if that was just by chance, by Aaron could potentially have been playing with it at the time or not. But again, just those are the positions they were in when I got it. And over here, we have speed controller indicator, Renshaw turbo indicator. So no doubt over here, they would light up to indicate that those are activated. We have pause, cap, and then we have this key, which I don't know what that exactly means. And then we have FDD in use. So yes, this model comes with a floppy disk drive internally. Now we're going to talk about that in a moment. And of course we have our power button. And on the top here, it boasts that it says has two cartridge slots. So we have one in the back and one to the right here. So you can see a cartridge slot here. And then we have our nomenclature and all of our detailed information here as well. So here you can see we have Kanji Basic, Kanji ROM 1 and 2, MSX-JE, FM sound, FDD, RAM is 64K, our VRAM of 128K. So it says that, so it's listing it there. And the personal computer HB-F1XV. So this is where you see the hit bit. At least I believe that's what that says. MSX 2 Plus, and then we have a little sound indicator there as well. Okay, let's move on to the right side of the unit. Okay, so along the right side of the unit here, so right side when you're face looking down at it, we have a nice ergonomic type layout here for the keyboard. It's not just flat, it's nice to have it on that angle. And you can see here we have that floppy drive I was talking about. Unfortunately, this unit, it's been removed from it. Now, I have gone online to look for these units on eBay. I did find a floppy drive for this going at over $500 US. And I was floored by that when I saw that. So I've definitely something that is much more rare, the fact that they are going for that price. Here we have two controllers. So we have, it says controller A and B. So they're both 9-pin. Looks like joystick type controllers here, but we'll go over those in a moment, what I have for that. And then along the back here, we have much more ports and stuff to look at. So here we have what looks like an RGB DIN connector here that no doubt would go out to a special adapter or some sort of connector to allow it to connect to RGB, which is pretty neat. Then we have audio and video out here is my understanding. Again, I have not plugged this in. I don't know a lot about this, but we'll go over it as we continue. And then we have our channels 1 and 2. So I imagine that would be to connect. And we also have RF here, RF modulator. So I believe the channel 1 and 2 would be for the RF modulator. Then we have a printer connector. It looks like a proprietary printer connector to Sony. So pretty interesting, hooking up a printer to this device. Then we have what looks like another DIN connector for tape. There's our second cartridge input. So you'd have one up top and one at the back. My understanding on this unit is you'd have one for RAM or memory expansion, and you'd also have that plugged in. At the same time, you'd have your cartridge in there for particular playing games or what have you. Then we have our power connector here, which is just your 2-prong power, pretty old for sure. And then we have, it looks like an on and off power switch. And then of course a screw, no doubt to, it says here, yeah, it says an antenna. So you'd be able to connect an antenna there. So just loosen up the top part, wrap your antenna around it, and then screw it back in for connection there. Okay, let's swap around the other side here. There we are. And on this side here, it looks like we have ventilation only on this side. And again, we have our ergonomics there as well. Let's take off the top cover. Now, Aaron was nice enough to remove the screws for me. I say nice enough because I don't know if he was working on going into this unit or not, but he was courtesy enough to remove that. So it's great. All right, I'm going to put the camera in a different orientation so everyone has a better view of what's going on here. Okay, so here is the inside of the unit. So it looks like we have a power supply kind of transformer going on in this area here. We have mains power coming in through the switch as well. Well, mains power connected to the board, and we have our switch interfacing with that same kind of board here. And I'm just looking along here, and we have this big capacitor here. We have 16 volt, and it looks like a 2200 microfarad capacitor here. Now, one thing I noticed is you see this white ring along the bottom here. It goes around the whole capacitor. There's no indication that the capacitor is leaking, at least from the top side of it. I don't know if that is, crusty from any sort of capacitor leakage, or in fact, if it's just maybe the glue, because sometimes I found in these older computers I've worked on and older electronics that this particular, any sort of capacitors they were using, they glued them down as well. So I don't know if that's just maybe glue around that area. I'm not exactly sure. Okay, so we see that we do have the two cartridge interfaces here, one that goes to the top and one through the bottom. We also have what looks like a ground wire that's disconnected here. Now I did check the back of the keyboard or back of the unit there just a moment ago when I switched the camera angles, and I'm not seeing anything that would connect to. So my feeling is that this actually connected to the back of the floppy drive that would house this area right here. And this connector here, by the looks of things, is also the floppy disk interface that would go to the back of the internal floppy disk. Again, a shame that it's not included with this unit, because the more I utilize this unit and look at this unit, I'm definitely intrigued by it. And you can also see that it has that connector for the floppy power as well. So over here we have a Yamaha V9958 chip. So the copyright showing 1988, and the date code on it is showing 1990, 33rd week. This could have came later, because it says in the documentation that this final version was being manufactured late 1989. So it's possible this would have been one of the later releases before they had stopped manufacturing this unit. But according to what I read online, this chip controls the video output itself. And the other thing that I'll mention is that this has two different types of audio. It has the PSG on the YM2149 chip, and which is the integrated in the MSX engine, it states. And then we have MSX Music, which would have been their own standard as well for this unit, on the YM2413 chip. Now, so the YM2149 and 2413 chips, I'm not able to locate them here. I was looking through the board as I went, and I haven't been able to see them just yet, but that's based on what I'm reading in the documentation. So it does state that it has 16 kilobytes of SRAM, which is somewhere along the board here, no doubt through these chips here. And then of course we'd have the optional expansion memory. And then of course on top of that, we do have what it says is 128K of VRAM for this unit. All right, and we also have, as you can see, the joystick connectors are directly soldered onto the motherboard itself, along as with the whole back I/O here as well. Let's see if we can lift off this keyboard, because one of the benefits of having the top part removed, we were able to access the bottom. So I'm not removing this ribbon cable here because it looks fairly delicate, and how it's mounted on the board here, I'm just really concerned about removing that, and I just don't want to be the one responsible for causing any sort of damage or grief to this unit. Okay, so going down here, let's go from right to left, because that's what people do, right? We don't go left to right, we go right to left. So it looks like we have a battery here, so it'll be an internal battery, which is really nice to see, versus say a Barta battery, which could have been leaking over all these years. This is a CR coin cell battery, so it wouldn't be so difficult to remove. Just have to go and do a little bit more work then and replace this with an actual coin cell holder. But definitely worth the investment of doing that if that's what you want to do and keep this board going. Okay, so we have our MSX2 Plus system written on the motherboard here. We also have looks like a Sony indicator up here as well. Then we have those connectors here on the top. It looks like that would have been for the keyboard unit, the top cover, which has those turbo type sliders on that, which I believe interface into those ports there. So over here, it looks like we have a Sony chip. It says Sony LH53102Y. It says 1990, 36th week on that chip. And then we have our CPU, which is a Zilog CPU, Z80, which is nice to see. 1990, 34th week. So if we're talking 1990 here, 33rd and 34th weeks for everything that we're seeing so far on the chips. It's definitely interesting to see that this would have been one of the later models released. And then so we also have this baud wire, which I'm moving over the CPU. So I'm not exactly sure what that would have been done for, but definitely obviously required if it's there. And then so we have this kind of broken up ribbon cable that's been stripped down going over up to this area. That is the cable that feeds the back of the floppy drive if it was populated in this computer. Okay, let's continue on here. So I'm reading on the PCB here. It's showing we have BASIC written here. So I don't know if that's the basic operating system that would be part of the computer itself. And then we have main memory written over here. So that's good to know if that's the main memory that's installed. So I thought the memory was up top. That could have been the additional memory for either the video controller or the sound, because it does have audio, video written in that on the PCB up in that area. And then down here as well, we have FDC. So that's our floppy disk controller chip. And I did confirm in the documentation that the chip is a MB839311AP chip. So that does confirm and lay out with the documentation. That's that. And there's a great site I'm getting all this information from that I will definitely post in a link down below and reference, because it has, I guess there's a whole wiki project associated with all of these types of computers. So really interesting to see, and what a great resource for people to keep this online. I think we're good here. I mean, we talked about all the different chips that we have. We talked about the memory. We talked about the video controller. Now, the interesting thing about this computer is that it does state that because it is a personal computer, it did have various software that came with it at the time. So it did come with a standard set of 3 disks. So the floppy disk controller that would have been in this computer at the time was a 720K drive. And that drive accessed you had 3 discs. So they call Creative Tool 1, 2, and 3 exclusively for this device. It came with F1 Synth, so a special version of the MSX music utility, and also came with a tool disk. So it had graphics editor, Halos created by HAL Laboratories, and game programming tools. And then the third disk came with a Japanese word processor, so document writer, created by Broderbund, Japan, plus MSX DOS 1. So you can see if you had that drive, you could do a little more with this in terms of, utilizing it as a personal computer. I want to show off a couple other items that we have with this system. Aaron was fortunate enough to acquire these as well. So it looks like we have a couple of games. So it looks like we have Chakin Pop by Taito Corporation for MSX. That's the format. And doesn't say anything else on that other than you can see it's a clear cartridge with the ROM chip in there as well. And then over here we have, looks like Konami's Tennis. So just a tennis from copyright 1984. It says RC720 at the bottom here, MSX. Definitely cool to see these in person. We also have this interesting device here. I don't know anything about this, but this was manufactured in 2014. And then so it says here compatible with the MSX, MSX2, and MSX2 Plus, and MSX Turbo R. So this unit here is the MSX2 Plus. And then, so again, because it was manufactured in 2014, obviously keeping in mind that some of these units were still around, and this would have been a later device that was created for 2 things. So it says Mapper Mega RAM. So we have our SD card 1 and 2. So it does take the 2 cards. We do have one populated, and we have off on, so the on switch is activated, and then we have MRMP, so MP is activated. Hello everyone, future me here doing the editing to the video, going over the footage, realizing what I was saying is not 100% accurate. Essentially what I'm saying here is that the 512 kilobytes of memory in this cartridge could be used for supporting other cartridges in the system. That's not the case. So essentially the 512 kilobytes of memory is contained within this cartridge, which supports the SD applications, which would then be utilized independently. Now, that said, you could get external cartridges that would be able to plug in the back, for example, for additional expansion and help support other cartridges in the system, but that does not apply to this particular cartridge. Okay, let's keep going. I think our next step here is to hook up a TV, and we'll see if we can get this at least powered on. We'll turn it on. I'll reconnect the cover back to the board utilizing those cables here that connect into those ports from the back of the top cover, and that should activate those other areas. No doubt some of the light indicators as well. Okay, and here we are all set up. I have the TV that we found in a thrift store all connected here, and we have it connected using the component cables here going to the back of the unit. I'm just gonna try and turn it on and see what happens. Let's go. Here we have power, turbo lights on, MSX, says main RAM 64 kilobytes. And we have, there we go. We have a working system. I'm not sure. We have our speed controller that's light up here. And if we slide it all the way to the left, it just says normal and then goes down to slow. So you can see it starts to speed up real quickly here, the light, and then just eventually goes off when I hit normal. So I'm just gonna leave it on normal for now. And then Renshaw Turbo, it says all the way down to off, and it looks like it's working just fine. Go to max there. And then we have our pause button. So when I press pause, yeah, nothing's happening. The pause is lit up there. So I'll unhook or undo that, I guess. And yeah, okay, we have, that's good. And then we have our caps lock key. Let's see if that works. And it does. And then this other key, I'll have to look up what this other key does here. It lights up that light, but I don't know what exactly it does. And obviously we can't test out the floppy disk drive. But yeah, okay. So we have MSX Basic version 3, copyright 1988 by Microsoft. 23 KB free disk Basic version 1. I am not familiar with BASIC. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how to use this system. This is before I started really getting into things. I realize, I believe the VIC-20 also has something similar to this, and I believe I had a little manual in my VIC-20 video, and I typed out a mini program here. But we do have color, auto, go to, list, and run on the bottom here. I'm going to type in list. Does that give me anything? Just says okay. I don't know if it's list. Does it give me an option here? Undefined line number. There's nothing listed there. I'm not sure. I mean, everyone's screaming at the screen right now who knows BASIC, going, no, type this, type that. I don't know. But what I do say and do know that we do have a working system. It's unfortunate, like I said, we don't have the floppy drive. I don't know if you can adapt a floppy drive to this unit. I don't know if there's projects online that you could potentially do that. I do have a couple of 720K 3.5-inch floppy drives, so it might be something that could potentially be adapted to this unit. Considering the power is separate, it's very possible that we could potentially, if we mapped out what those data points go to onto the floppy, it's very potentially, it's a strong possibility you could probably do that. Okay, so yeah, I mean, my curiosity is getting deeper as we go. So I'm going to turn off the unit for a moment. One thing I'll mention is, I didn't mention this earlier, is there was one other game that was included. It's in a box, no less, is Konami as well, and it says Nemesis. So 1986. It says 1 megabit ROM cartridge required. So I'm not sure if that's going to work or not to run this game, but it says steal the enemy's power capsules and fight your way through. That looks like a really cool game. And the graphics looks pretty neat for that time frame. And then I open this up and it just looks like there's an insert here with the cartridge itself. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm definitely going to try it regardless of what it's telling me and see if we can get it going. There we are. I'll turn it back on. Yeah, see? There we go. So we do have something coming up now. There we go. Okay. All right, so we have 1-player, 2-player, and doubles. Oh, that is so cool. Does this have volume? Let's find out. Of course, I don't have a remote for this TV. Okay, so I swapped around the audio cable, and I believe I have this working audio-wise now. So we're going to go ahead and pop that cartridge back in, the good old tennis. Everyone loves a good game of tennis. I never did personally in Nintendo, but yeah, we'll pop it in here and see if it works. So we have our screen again, 64K memory, and it's popping up here. So far, so good. We'll go one player. Game select one. And we have sound. How quaint. Yay! Oh my goodness. All right. Well, that was too much fun. So yeah, you can see I'm just using the keyboard. I'm literally just using the spacebar for any sort of executable option, and this really interesting kind of arrow layout here, arrangement for moving around the character. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna turn this off, and we're gonna try something else here. See what happens. So we have our startup. Oh, it detected different memory this time. Okay, there we go. So SD Mapper program, it comes up and says slot 1 has the SD card there. So it says an A prompt. DIR? What is this? So it says we have demos, games, HD menu, MM or KM or KN or whatever, saves, settings, SR, TMP maybe, temp, util, HD menu, and MM, and then sofa run. All right, let's go HD menu. It's accessing the SD card. What is this? I don't have... Oh, okay, so you can move the mouse around by using the arrow keys. Okay, so this is I don't want to say Windows, but it's a graphical user interface browser for what is on this ROM cartridge. So when I went into that, into the directory, it comes up in all those directories that we had in the DIR when we did that earlier. So that's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to get out of there for now. This program. Let's go to File. And it's not giving me the option to quit. There we go. So we're going to go to MSX DOS. I mean, I'm accessing the MSX DOS. This is exactly what it was referring to on one of the floppies. That's so cool. All right, so it's already pre-programmed in this ROM. So we know the HD menu allows us to have access to that kind of graphical user interface. So we're just going to go CD Games, DIR. So we have Bomberman, Mega ROM, ROM, and ROM Pack. Let's go to Mega ROM just to see what's on there. Oh my goodness. Look at all these. Holy, all the games on here. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Too much for this video, but definitely cool to see. Okay, so I had to use a different character. It's not a backslash. It's whatever this character is right there, which I was able to find on the keyboard and get back to where I was. There's no backslash. Let's go to CD Bomberman, I believe it is. I believe that's how you spell that or say that. And do a DIR. What do we have here? What is this? Sure, new game. Okay, so we have a couple games under our belt here. And yeah, this is a really cool cartridge to be able to have all this on here. And I didn't realize that I didn't have my mic. I had the mic before or beside the TV itself. So my apologies on the audio for the last little bit. Okay, so I'm going to reset this now, take the cartridge out, and I want to try this game. It says it's 1 megabit ROM, but I'm wondering if that comes with the memory, the cartridge itself that's required. Let's see if I'm able to get this going. All right, one player. We'll send reinforcements. Oh no. And here we are at the end, and you know, it's night and day from when we first started just kind of exploring what this computer was all about to the fact that it actually works. I mean, this system from 1989, 1990, and this series of computers, the F1XV systems, I think it's just so cool. Something that was designed for the Japanese market made its way over here and is fully functional, minus the floppy disk drive, of course, which is an absolute shame in my eyes, but this cartridge does replace that, I believe. You know, if we found the MSX DOS on here, and between that and the basic that we have on the computer, you do have that functionality. And no doubt on this cartridge, if we continued to search, we have that music synth software, the MSX Music, as well as the document writer, the word processor, as well as any sort of the creative tools that would have come on those three floppies. Because again, one of those three floppies came with that software. So no doubt with all the different information that's on this and with more time exploring, we would probably find that. I am going to do a backup of this and upload it to archive.org. I think it's important to preserve this stuff. And if we can do that, I'll do that for anybody who might have this system in their possession, but it's not functional because they don't have that. You know, it was really cool to play a couple of these games. We can show that it is fully functional. And yeah, you know, for me, I normally don't do this sort of thing on the channel, but the thing that caught my eye, as I mentioned in the intro, was the fact it said personal computer on it. And of course, Aaron was so kind enough to lend this to the Retro Recall to do kind of an overview on it. But my goodness, I think this is pretty darn neat, and definitely a piece of computing history that had both the computing side of it as well as the game side of it, you know, game computer as I nicknamed it earlier. But yeah, you know what? I mean, pretty cool seeing the Sony branding on this. And, you know, I would say back in the day, this would have been pretty capable in that market. That said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Makes a world of difference, helps the channel grow. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. Did you own one of these computers, or do you own one of these computers today? I'd be really interested to hear about that. Or do you own a system very similar to this? Really excited to hear all the feedback, all the comments on the channel. I respond to absolutely every one of them, and I love the interaction. Always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.